Do you find yourself tempted to start making a list of all the organization products you need to buy to start reorganizing your craft room for a better, crafty new year? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's talk organization products today, because I have fallen into that trap where I'm like, I'm gonna reorganize my craft room this year so that I really get more done, and then I start thinking about all the products that I need to buy. Oh, I need these, this, that, these containers, this organization, whatever. And that doesn't always actually lead to more crafting. So today I'm going to share some organization products you probably don't need and some that are probably worth it so that we can reframe and be less distracted by the pretty and more focused on the functional. So the first organization product you probably don't need is lots of little specific different sizes of plastic bins. Now, if you have some on hand, you're repurposing them, you have old takeout containers, that's great. But what I'm saying is rather than buying all these specific little bins that are marketed as drawer organizers, they're so popular at the beginning of the year, start looking, especially if you're seeing this video before Christmas, and start looking at all that packaging that you're about to throw away. Because that happens a lot at Christmas time. You get a gift and sometimes they put it in a fancy box. Like this was, I think, from a gift set. I certainly had a few boxes in my craft room from gift sets. And, I look for like sturdy boxes, ones that I feel like are gonna hold up. And I start seeing, can I fit those in my drawers before I start going to the store and buying lots and lots of bins? Particularly if you're going to put them in drawers. If you're not even going to see all those cute plastic bins because they're just sitting in your drawers, maybe you can use something that you already have. Now, there are times where I think a specialty plastic bin can be helpful. And specifically, a specialty plastic bin I really like are my scrapbook.com stack and sort trays. I use these on the regular. I use them to put all the little pieces for my projects in. So like I like to make cards with patterned paper. I have these things called paper busting templates. And so I will like cut little pieces of patterned paper and then they're cardstock mats and I'll add my embellishments and I'm putting each of them in a little container. And then I like that they stack so that I can put them aside on my desk and I'm a lot less likely to knock them over because they stack. So you could absolutely save, some different trays you find. You can make them out of cardstock. But for me, I like this. I use it on the regular. And anytime you find there's a thing that you're using regularly and you think you could purchase a better alternative for, go for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy any specialty organization products, but think about how you craft. Me? I don't use blending brushes very often. This little tray of blending brushes is perfect for me. I don't need a specific holder, but I do use these stacking trays to keep my desk organized on the regular. The next crafting organization supply you probably don't need is anything that is really specific to one kind of supply. I do have one in my room because, again, I do think there are alternatives. There's times where it's worth it. But there are like little bottle holders out there. There are those blending brush holders. I just showed you my blending brushes are not in any kind of fancy container. But I don't reach for my pops of color very often. It's just not really my style. They're cute. I use them sometimes. They can be very fun. You can make little enamel dots with them. But I don't use those very often. I do find that it's really important to me to have my inks organized. I like to stamp in colored ink. I like to stamp my sentiments in colored ink. And so I have had different organizations for my ink, but when they were in drawers and they weren't in these little specific containers from Tim Holtz, these little mini ink cube tins or whatever they're called, they would slide around, or I like to keep them in color order, in rainbow order if I have all of them. And so if I take one out, I know exactly where to put it back. And I thought that was worth it because that's what I use on the regular. But consider that anytime you buy a highly specific kind of container, you might not be able to repurpose it. So once I have stopped using mini ink, if I ever stop using mini ink cubes, which, they're a pretty long-term supply, but if I found I really wasn't stamping with them, I might choose to get rid of them. Technically, this can just become like a bin, a tray. I could, you know, sort little pieces into it, kind of like I was talking about with my stack and sort trays. But if you have those like very specific like bottle holders, they kind of can't hold a lot of other things. And honestly, a lot of times these specialty things, they don't hold, they take up more space. Like you can't put 10 bottles. You could put 10 bottles in less space than a specialty organizer would. I could, you know, this is a little bit bulkier than it needs to be for these, you know, so something to factor in as well. The next crafty organization supply I don't think you need are stamp pockets or a way of repackaging your stamps. I don't think we always need to repackage our stamps. Maybe if you like to pull apart your sets, it would be really helpful to repackage them. Like you want to put all your hellos together, you're going to need a different way of doing it. But if you primarily just pull out your stamp set, stamp something down, then put it away, you could probably just keep it in its original packaging. I do kind of like to cut the tops off of my original packaging. I just find it a little bit easier to slip in and out than to use the sticky back. But I think that either way, you could probably just keep it in its regular packaging. There are some times where I do like to repackage it. I do use these 5x8 zip top bags, not stamp pockets, because I like to keep my original sheets, my backer sheets, which often don't fit in stamp pockets. And these fit better in my drawers from IKEA. Not the big wide Alex units, but the more narrow ones. So my stamp organization system, these fit better in. But I do like to put my stamps in bags if I have things like the coordinating dies behind, because often you can't fit anything extra in the original packaging. Or here I have a mask, so like coordinating dies. Here I have this mask where in addition to the coordinating die, I like to have this to help me to put the piece in and stamp and line up the words that go with it, because you do kind of have to like, you know, put them in a curve and it's a whole thing, but it's just a super fun set. Anyway, that's another reason why it might be nice. I could technically fit that mask behind here. You know, also if you like to die cut extras or stamp extras and die cut them, it can be nice to have a zip top bag to kind of hold all those extras in the back. Similar note, you do not have to repackage all of your dies or put them all on magnetic sheets. Not to say never do this, but like this die here, it's just a single die. I certainly don't need a magnetic sheet for it. I in fact took off the stickiness that was behind here so I could more easily access this die when I need it, and just cutting the top off was enough. Now if I use this die so much that reaching for it eventually rips the packaging, I can totally put it in one of those 5x8 bags. But I am, like, the way that I store my dies, I don't find their packaging to get, you know, like too beat up too quickly or anything like that. Sometimes if like for some reason I've pulled up the sticky back, I will sometimes use magnets behind it, or if I have lots of little dies, I don't think I pulled out an example of that, but there are times where I will switch to the magnets, but I don't think you need that. And I think that it's easy to just kind of get into the groove of like repackaging everything as soon as it comes into our craft room so that it all looks nice and neat. And if you want to do that, if that makes you happy, if that makes you light up when you go in your craft room, please, this video is absolutely not about making anyone feel bad for anything they do that makes them happy as a crafter. But if you're feeling unhappy because you think you have to spend all this time and money repackaging your supplies, and you feel like that would be better spent crafting or better spent on additional supplies, then I wanted to use this video as a way to help you like rethink some of those things that we see a lot of and might not actually be that important to us. I want to take just a little bit of time to talk about some things though that are worth it. So we talked about some things you don't have to do, what we could do instead, what might actually be worth it, and that's where I'm going to focus a little bit more my attention now. So there's like super fancy specific sequin holders. I don't use a lot of sequins. I don't need that, because also they're rigid containers. So they can only hold certain things. They can only hold certain amounts of things. So like if my sequin bag is, you know, or if I have more than one, I might need more than one container for it. What I like to use a lot, and you kind of probably already guessed this, is zip top bags, because I think that they're just a little bit more versatile than a lot of those plastic containers. So in addition to looking for like free things like, you know, old packaging, old boxes to use, I also find inexpensive plastic zip top bags to be quite helpful and versatile in the craft room. I can hold, as you can see, a variety of different embellishments in them. And then when I've consumed an entire package of embellishments, like here, this was a set of stickers. It eventually was getting like, you know, I didn't want to have to keep flipping through it. It was like just the way that it was packaged was a little bit funny. It was kind of hard to see all my alternatives or whatever. I put in this plastic bag, but when I use up all of these stickers, this plastic bag can absolutely go and be used for something else. And that's the same true of those containers, right? Like if you use all the sequins in the container, of course you could put new sequins in it, but you might not be able to fit your wobbles or your wiggle eyes, or I think these are these sanding discs or whatever. Or also it might be harder, like, because they, you know, they're little plastic containers inside of a big container. And so you're like, okay, this is where I look for my sequins, but it's not where I look for my wobbles. And so therefore I have to put them in a different place. And these are kind of versatile. Also, they're a little malleable. You know, like I can put thicker and thinner things in them. I can usually like kind of just put a pile of them somewhere. It's not like a container that only fits in a very specific place, that kind of thing. So I think plastic bags are super useful. You saw that I use them to store stamps and dies when I feel like I do need to repackage them or want to repackage them. Because also, again, you can do anything you want to do in your craft room. It's just if these things don't feel good. But I can use that same plastic bag to store my A2 size patterned paper. I use it to store little pieces for when I'm doing, like, if I'm gonna film myself making a card and I need to keep all the little pieces together, I can store little pieces in a plastic bag. Kind of talked about with the trays too. I use freezer bags to hold 6x6 patterned paper, or freezer quart size bags to hold 6x6 patterned paper, and then the embellishments can go in there. Things like that. So like, for me, a variety of plastic bags has actually been like a really helpful thing in the craft room just because they're so versatile. There's one time where the plastic bag plan fails me though. I do store patterned paper, like I said, in plastic bags. Like I have my 6x8 pads in these bags so that I don't lose any like pieces or scraps. I showed you how I do my 6x6. But 8.5 by 11, I've never found quite the perfect plastic bag for. So I do use job ticket holders, and I do find these to be worth it because it keeps my scraps together. Now, if you don't use a lot of cardstock, you can go ahead and skip. But as someone who uses a lot of cardstock, and I like to buy them in bulk, so I need to repackage them because they're really hard to like look through in their original packaging. Plus, the original packaging of bulk cardstock is usually kind of flimsy and tears pretty easily, that kind of thing. They're hard to go through. And then I like to keep my scraps, so it saves me money because I can go to my scraps first instead of cutting a full sheet because I know exactly where my scraps are. And so this is another one that I find to be quite worth it. And these are actually kind of versatile because you actually wind up with a lot of 8.5 by 11 type things. Like I have 8.5 by 11 stencil material. I have full sheets of adhesive, like Stick It adhesive, scrapbook.com, like they have like large sheets of adhesive, watercolor paper, etc. There's just a lot of things that kind of come in this size. So if I just, you know, use up all of this cardstock, I'm not left with a container that's too specialty or specific. The last organization thing that I think is absolutely worth it, and it's not a very expensive one, is an idea binder. I think that there's that temptation to like save all our ideas on the internet. Like you can, you know, save things on Instagram and you can like make playlists on YouTube and that kind of thing. But then you're going back to your phone, you're going back to Instagram and you get like, you know, sucked into looking at other stuff, or like you can watch a couple videos on YouTube. And like, you know, obviously I post things on Instagram and YouTube and I want you to, you know, watch and enjoy the videos, but having a binder full of ideas is something that I think is actually really helpful. So for me specifically, the main kind of binder that I keep are for my paper busting templates. So what I like to do is cut patterned paper in a way that leaves no scraps, like use the exact whole sheet of pattern paper and then turn it into a card, and I give you a sketch. So you get a template for how to cut the pattern paper and then a sketch for the card. And I do these in like 6x6 paper, 6x8 paper, 8x8 paper, 12x12 paper. I do A2 cards, 5x7 cards, slimline cards. And so I have a lot of ideas. I have several binders full of these templates. And then when I want to craft, I can go right to this idea binder, and you don't even need it to be this fancy. You could just punch holes in them. You don't have to use these like page protectors like I do. But I will say, I do think the binder itself is worth it. I think it's better than keeping it like in a folder or, like I said, just saving it online and on a Pinterest board, that kind of thing, because I just think that this helps me to get right to crafting. Whereas if I'm saving it all on a computer or like iPad, whatever, phone, etc., I'm just more likely to get distracted. I like having those physical copies. So I do think an idea binder where you print out some of your favorite ideas, as long as it's, okay to print them. But like if you take classes and you get handouts, if you go to the MFT website, I know they used to at least have like the PDF of all their card sketches. You could download my templates if you find that helpful. And I will leave a link to just a few sizes for you to try out if you're interested. But that, I think, that's worth the time to assemble those idea folders, because I think it will help you or idea binders, because I think it will help you to craft more. I hope you've enjoyed this look at some craft organization products that you might not need and some that might be worth it. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.